Hello, one and all, and welcome to the podcast we call the Fantastival with myself, Stephen Nussbaum. In the podcast, I invite my guests to come on and talk to me all about their musical taste, their memories, their experiences, and they get to create their fantasy festivals, which I have christened Fantastivals. I hope everyone is well as you're listening to this podcast. And before we start this one, just want to say a massive thank you to Charlie Stone, who was my last guest in episode 166. She was a wonderful guest, an awesome fantasy festival lineup, and spoke about so many acts. So if you haven't heard that one, please go back and have a listen. She was wonderful, and her new album is absolutely cracking. Here comes the actual band. If you've not heard it, you can stream it on Spotify. You can buy it on Bandcamp. It's a wonderful album, so please go back and listen to that wonderful episode with Charlie. So that was 166, like I said. This is 167, and I'm delighted to introduce somebody whose face you might know well from the all fantastic videos that he's put out across social media. It's the man who Noel Gallagher grumpily said was, right, it's ex-Brasil frontman and the man behind the Santos Connection is Mr. Kenny Harkis.
Hello, mate. What an introduction. Thank you for that. Yeah, getting Noel Gallagher in there early.
Mate, Noel Gallagher's in there. He's in there early. He's bound to come back in the podcast when I ask you about kind of his comment later. Yeah. Kenny, I've wanted you on the podcast for ages. I'm a big fan of yours. I love watching your videos as they crop up. I think your song choices are great. I love your voice. I love the way you deliver your videos, and I'm looking forward to talking to you all about that and how they came about. But before we get into music, mate, always like to check in with my guests. Make sure they're doing well from like a mental health perspective. So Kenny, mate, how you doing?
I'm very, very well indeed. Yes, I'm very lucky, I would say. I'm all right, you know. Family's fine, everything's good. I mean, good, you know, place generally. Mental health's good. I can't complain. But I do appreciate I'm very lucky. I know a lot of people, you know, aren't in that kind of same positive space that I am a lot. But generally, yeah, I'm doing very well. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Mate, it's a pleasure to ask on that. So let me take you back then. I'm going to take you back all the way to when you was a young lad. Tell me about your earliest musical memories then, Kenny. What do you remember from being a kid and music?
I've always been, I would say, looking back, quite obsessed with music. Certainly from when like 8, 9, I can remember just like Top of the Pops being on and being obsessed with that and watching it. Like chart show and stuff like that. I can remember that on ITV. Yeah. Watching it all the time. Before I kind of knew what it was really, I was like, seemed to be kind of glued to it. And when I was able to kind of make my own choices of music and, you know, but use my birthday money to buy stuff, it was like, I was really into Michael Jackson from about 8, 9, but not like bad album necessarily, although I did, I suppose, quite like it, but it was like the Jackson 5 and the 70s stuff. I don't quite know where that came from, because at the time there was no one in my family into that, but for some reason Jackson 5 and all that I just loved it. I could not get enough of it, you know. And then yeah, my dad weren't a very kind of musical family, so I didn't really, like I said, we were obsessed with music in terms of listening to it. Playing it didn't come till very much later. There were no, I know some people say, oh, we had guitars hanging around, or there was a piano or an old drum kit or whatever. We never had anything like that knocking about. My mum or dad, in fact, any of my family really, I don't think we were very, there was certainly no instruments in their house. And so we grew up in a kind of working class little town place called Nottingley, near Pontefract, just outside of Wakefield, at like a pit village, pit town. It was, like I said, working class, bringing in my friends, none of them, they didn't have any instruments in their house either, you know. So that playing the instrument came very much later on. But yeah, my earliest musical stuff, yeah, it's chart shows, Top of the Pops, it's you know, Michael Jackson, you know, and then moving on through to, I suppose, quite a weird change from Michael Jackson to Guns N' Roses, you know, and then I think I remember my mate playing me a few Guns N' Roses tracks, and I think it's because it had swearing in them first, right? And the parental advisory sticker on Appetite for Destruction, you know, and that the imagery of the like crucifix cross with the, you know, the slash and axle and all that, the weird like skeletal drawings, and I was kind of drawn in by that, that's for sure. And then the swearing helped, and like I'd always try and find the songs with the swearing on to listen to them, you know, on my Walkman. And I suppose then started getting drawn into their songs, because no matter what you think about it, they were good songs, the Guns N' Roses stuff. And then kind of that moved me on into the Nirvana when I got a little bit older. You know, 11, 12-ish, they were coming round Nirvana. And undeniable to me and my mates, Nirvana, they were great. Everybody I talked to loved Nirvana, and they were really ace. I weren't that bothered about grunge as a whole necessarily. Pearl Jam, not really interested. Soundgarden, not really interested. It was just Nirvana for me. And then a little bit of Green Day as I got older. And then I kind of left all the heavy stuff behind when Oasis, all that came along. And then that it's been like that kind of ever since. But a weird one, I suppose. I've been thinking about this earlier on today, that since 11, 12-ish, there's always been this undercurrent of 60s music. I was really kind of like enamoured by it, and I don't know, I want to find another word from obsessed, because I can't have been obsessed at that age, but like it was really striking to me seeing stuff like The Doors and Small Faces on TV and listening to it. And I used to knock about with some lads who were a bit older than me, so if I was 11, 12, they'll have been 14, 15, and they were into smoking a little bit of stuff, and I wasn't, obviously I was too young, but they were into Doors, they were into all this type of sort of weird music, and I just loved the songs, Doors songs, just absolutely loved them. And that fitted in with this like 60s thing that I had going on as a young kid as well. And I remember my dad had this tape of, it must have been like sounds of the 60s and old 60s Top of the Popsies that, in the early 90s, it must have been repeated at some point, and he taped them all, or his mate had taped them all. And he had this tape, and I used to watch it, and it had like The Move on it, and Small Faces doing Song of a Baker, all these weird Top of the Pop appearances, and all that imagery and the guitars and all that kind of stuff like just got into me bones. And I sometimes think back to like my mum must have been listening to my bedroom at 12, 13, and I'm listening to Light My Fire and Pink Floyd and all this type of stuff, and Jimi Hendrix, and she must be thinking, what's he doing there? But to me, I just loved it, and just loved Doors ever since then. So yeah, the 60s things carried through, the Britpop thing, when that came along, and Oasis. I've never really kind of not got over it. Oasis, I suppose I've got over, but that music to me is still really important. I still find that, still always like go back to that quite often when I listen to it. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Very long nutshell.
No, mate, we love long nutshells on the podcast. So you mentioned like there was no like guitar floating around the house. There's no like musical kind of things going on in your family. So kind of how did the guitar find you in? Was the guitar your first instrument, or did you kind of meddle with like another instrument before you kind of found a guitar?
No, I think the most serious thing with the guitar, really. I dabbled a little bit in drums and stuff when we had at school and stuff. I always kind of fancied that, but dead impractical, I suppose, isn't it? Just to grab a pair of drums and put them in your bedroom. But no, I remember my mate. So, like I said, we were all into similar sort of music. So this will have been in the sort of Nirvana era, so like 12, 13, 14, in utero, all that kind of age. And my mate Rob from my hometown, I saw him walking up the street one day, and he had this guitar. Now, looking back, it was a Gibson Les Paul copy. I'm like, what are you doing with that? So I just bought it off this lad. I'm like, I wanted it, right? And it's like, amazing. So he went back, and he was left-handed, so I can't remember if it was a left-handed guitar he bought or he just restrung it. But I just remember thinking about it. I thought, I need to see it again. He lived in my street before. So I went round to see him a few days later, and he was like, yeah, come in and have a look. He says, I've learned Come As You Are, the Nirvana song. Yeah. And he played it, and it's dead simple looking back, but at the time, I'm like, I can't believe this. And then a couple of days later, he's like, I've learned Teen Spirit, and he's playing Teen Spirit. And I'm like going, like, my head's going to fall off, right? How can you be playing this song that we're all obsessed with? How can you be playing it? Like, I need it, So, and like I said, I had this music obsession anyway. I needed a bit of that. So I suppose I talked my mum into it, and using a bit of birthday money, and I bought a little crappy second-hand guitar off my mate's brother, Andy Clark. And just stared at it for ages. It was a horrible little thing, but it didn't matter. Like, it were mine, and I got it strung up, and my mate came round and tuned it up for me and showed me how to do tablature, the ones and twos on the, the numbers on the strings. And you couldn't take that guitar out of my hand. And for like years and years afterwards, I couldn't practice enough. Some people like, it's a bit boring trying to put an hour a day to practice. Like, you could not stop me from playing that guitar. And I learned the tablature, then somebody gave me a couple of chords, and then I worked out that with the same chords to Light My Fire. So I'm like going out, how am I playing Light My Fire? The chords to Light My Fire on the guitar and singing along to it. It just absolutely blew my mind, and I could not get enough of that stuff, you know. So I'd buy guitar books and learn the songs, and I would just drinking it in, and then naturally it just becomes part of you then. And it was the same for a lot of my mates. That, you know, a lot of my mates were in that same boat. And then that's when we formed a little bit of a band that ended up being Brasil, I suppose. You know, as the years went on. Yeah, that's kind of where the guitar thing come from. As soon as I saw it, and as soon as I heard what it could do, I wanted it. I wanted to be part of it, and yeah, it still is to this day.
I remember like the euphoria of like going to a music shop, right, and looking at all the guitar books. Like in a pre-internet world, you had to go and buy the books, right, and look at the chords in a shop and try and hope you remembered them if you weren't going to buy the books.
That's it, yeah. Or at least like earmark which ones you wanted for Christmas, you know. But I love those books. I've still got a lot of them. I don't think, like, why would you ever get rid of them? They're ace, and they're all bang on as well. You know, they're all absolutely perfect. Even looking back now, they're like, the chords are right, the notation's right. Yeah, great stuff. Lovely bits of art as well when you look at them, you know, like a big album cover on them. Yeah, great. Yeah, I loved all that stuff.
So tell me about Brasil then. So you mentioned you joined a band and that became, I guess, the first incarnation of Brasil. So Brasil took you, I guess, to a few different places.
Yeah, it did for sure, yeah. So, yeah, it started off at school with a mate, Andy Zuck, who now produces all of my Santos Connection stuff. But I went to school with him, and we'll talk probably more about him later on. But, yeah, he was in the band with us, and Johnny Clark, Mark Britton, and we started this little band, and we were rubbish as you always are, but we loved it so much, you just sort of carried on. Didn't do any gigs for ages. Really wanted to get absolutely like ace. I'd seen so many crap bands. I'd walk away feeling embarrassed for them, you know, and I thought I'd never want anybody to walk out of one of my gigs feeling embarrassed, going, that garbage, what are they doing, who do they think they are? So we spent maybe too long trying to get it right, and by the time we're kind of 18, we'd still not really done much. But then Andy Zuck, he'd left to go to university, and we all kind of stayed behind. So he left, he was a guitarist, and so was I. But so we're going to get another guitarist. We ended up getting a keyboard player in, Andy Hollins. And that really opened things up then, because that means we could use pianos, strings, organs, all this kind of stuff. And it changed kind of how I wrote the songs then, knowing that we could have like a string quartet in the background and all that. So you mess around with that. And yes, we started to get really quite good. And then we started doing gigs sort of very late 99. And first gig we did was at the Duchess in Leeds. It was quite like a famous venue at the time. It was on the, like Nirvana played there, Oasis played one of their early gigs there. It's now Hugo Boss, I think. One of those audible stories when it gets, you know, taken over by the man and all that. But, that was one of our first gigs, and could not believe it when we got that. And it, you know, it was great. It was absolutely ace, feeling that, really ace. And then we ended up, it kind of went on from there really, and supported Snow Patrol at the Wardrobe in Leeds a few years later. We got signed up with a little kind of promotions company who sent us all around country. It was one of those things though, they'll give you 50 tickets, you've got to try and sell 50 tickets, you get a quid, you know, they get the rest and all that. They don't have to do any work, you're doing all the promo and the public. But, you know, when you're 19, 20, 21, that's ace, who cares? It's brilliant. So we're up and down country, London, played the Cavern, supported Kaiser Chiefs in their early days in Leeds, played down in London at the Garage, like all things. That's why it's so ace being in the band, because looking back, like I've done loads of ace stuff, ended up in loads of crazy situations, in weird rooms, like running away from weird people, just all things that you never, like, if I weren't in that band, I've never had those experiences. And, getting to meet bands that went on to be quite big, you know, Snow Patrol, whether you like them or not. Like Kaiser Chiefs, Television, spotted the guy out of Television at the Cavern, and I think that was the first gig that my missus, then my girlfriend, that was the first gig that she ever saw us at. So imagine that, I think, you know, first, the Cavern, like what a story, you know, making out I do it all the time. I'm always here, yeah. But yeah, and that's where she first met my mum and dad, you know. So all these little headline moments, these little milestones, like, were all brought on by being a band and by music. And when I used to look at other mates who weren't in bands where they were like doing boring stuff like footy training or going to watch a match or sitting at a beer garden. I were doing gigs, I were rehearsing, I were writing songs, doing all this stuff, and they'd come and watch us. You know, big buses would turn up and they'd all pile out, and they'd come and watch us do it. And it was great, absolutely ace.
So what happened to Brazil then? So I guess, how did Brazil come to its end? Yeah,
so I suppose late, we released the single in about 2008 through a little Leeds label, a guy called Jack Simpson, who's quite well known on the Leeds scene. Helped us put out. He gave us a residency in one of these clubs in Leeds, and we started building a bit of momentum. And he helped us put a single out, and we had a single launch night. And Tom Hingley from Inspiral Carpets came, and he did the DJing afterwards. And they're all other bands on that circuit, and they all had singles out at similar times, and we'd all support each other. So Bonehead from Oasis, he came and did one of the DJ sets, so I got to meet him. Some of the guys from the Smiths, they did some DJing, we got to meet them. And then coming towards the end of that, jobs, families, boring stuff starts getting in the way and eating away at your time. So I had no time anymore to spend 3 hours on a Friday night practicing, 3 hours on a Wednesday night practicing, gigging a couple of times a month, because like you'd have to go to like Hull, Sheffield, and you won't go on a Tuesday night, you won't go on till 11 o'clock, you know, and there'd be no one there anyway, you know. So like, and then, but work, like I said, work started getting a bit more important, so you had to give that a bit more time. The kids come along, and it just kind of slowly kind of came to an end. So it never actually, we never split up.
Right.
It just kind of stopped. And then, that's kind of how that kind of petered out, really. I still kind of think one day we'll get it all back together and have one big final gig at Brudenell in Leeds, you know, and we'll sell it out. And, you know, we need 6 months practice to get anywhere near where we were, and I'm still not there yet anyway. So yeah. But what I ended up doing was got bored and I was still playing and still wanted to continue writing, but didn't have the time to practice or do anything live. So yeah, that's when I started just writing songs for myself and seeing what had happened. Then I started talking to my mate Andy Zuck, who'd got his own little studio sorted out down at his place, and said, yeah, let's fancy doing a bit of recording. And that's when I recorded my first song. It became an EP. And then once or twice a year, I'll go down and record these new singles and stick them out on Spotify and stuff. It takes a little bit longer these days because I have to play all the instruments myself. So you've got to layer it up instead of, you know, playing live and stuff like that. But ace fun, really ace fun, yeah. So that's kind of where I am today, really.
Mate, it's some great stuff. The Santos Connection, obviously the name is connected to Brazil. That only struck me a couple of days ago. And I was like, that's where the name must come from, when I was like doing my research.
Yeah, well, when we were deciding on the name for Brazil, I always hated like the pretentiousness of band names, right? And what people might try and like link to it. You know, what does that mean? And I always said, you should just stick to place names, right? Pick a cool place name, and then no one can read anything into it. It's just that. And that's we came up with Brazil, because I always think Brazil, like the coolest out there, like best at football, best at everything, like it's like just ace, right? And just coolest people. And I thought, so why not be coolest bands? Like I'll lump in with all the other Brazils. So we took it that way, and then we changed I think there was another band called Brazil in America or something. So it was spelled with a Z, so then I had to change it to an S to get through. Because you remember MySpace?
Yeah.
So I had to find a MySpace name, and they wouldn't let me have Brazil.
Right.
Someone else had it, so I had to change the S. And that, so we stuck with that. And then the Santos Connection, when I was deciding to release stuff as like a solo artist, for want of a better phrase, that sounds a bit arsey, but I didn't want to be like known as Kenny Harkis, a singer-songwriter type of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, I didn't want to be thought of as that. The music itself sounded like a band. I didn't think anybody'd be hearing it anyway, so I thought I'll just make out I'm like a band, you know. But I needed a name, and that's what I was thinking. Well, Brazil, there's a guy called Marcio Santos who played for Brazil, and I thought he played for Brazil. I played for Brazil, right? That's the connection, right? So anyway, right? So that's what it was. So like the Santos Connection is Brazil, and it just that's kind of where it comes from, really. A bit of fun, but it had a slight bit of meaning and a little bit kind of call back to me youth, and stuck with it. But it's interesting because sometimes you'll get some of the stuff. I get more radio airplay with the Santos Connection stuff than we ever did with the band, and we were out like playing gigs and doing stuff. And it's a bit cruel, really. But sometimes we'll get some stuff played, and they'll say like the new single from the lads from Leeds, or the cracking group of lads from Leeds, the Santos Connection. And like, don't invite us all into the studio. There'll only be me turning up with with one man band and with cymbals on my elbows and all that, doing it on myself. So yeah, it comes across as like a band, and that's kind of what I wanted to be like. I wanted it to sound like a band, not a singer-songwriter type of thing. So worked out quite well.
Yeah, you had some great output. A lot of the tracks are available on Spotify, ranging from, I guess, like the EP you mentioned, the first EP from 2017 to your last single, which was Bonnie and Clyde in 2023. You mentioned being played on radio, but you were also recently featured on the Bits and Pieces compilation, Volume 4, which seemed to go down very well.
Yeah, that was ace. Really ace to be involved with that, because I'd seen like the previous volumes kind of around on social media and was a little bit jealous, but one of those things in a good way, in like a good competition way. So I'm thinking like, I'd love to be part of that, but it's like I never will, because I'm not an active musician in terms of I'm not out there promoting myself, doing live stuff. I'm just, I might as well be just doing it in my bedroom as far as anyone else cares. Why would I ever get to be part of something like that? Yeah, and then when I heard that they were doing Volume 4, then Mark Rossiter got in touch saying, I've been listening to a few of your stuff, and what about if we used Emperor? I think he said I've been, finger tapping away to it a few times and I quite like it. I'm like, brilliant, let's do it. I could not believe it, because I knew as well what would come along with it. Like, I knew it'd be kind of an exciting ride, stuff that I'd really like. I don't know, something I really wanted to be a part of. So yeah, when they whittled it down to 18 and I was on there, I couldn't quite believe it. It felt a bit of a fraud, because I'm thinking I'm not like, because a lot of these guys who are on it, they're doing gigs all the time, and I'd see them dotted around doing gigs and promoting gigs and all that, and I'm like a bit of a fraud. So I felt like I had to pull my weight a little bit to try and promote it and do stuff and do extra bits and bobs here and there. But that were ace. That were really, really good experience. He's a great bloke. He's a really ace guy. He put a load of his own time into that and a load of his own money as well. Like, we didn't pay a penny out of it. And we just all wanted him to get his money back that he'd put in, you know what I mean? Because with the sales, and it's difficult because CDs are unusual format these days. It's not like the 90s, is it, where everything's on CD? People don't have CD players as much these days. People don't have as much disposable income as they had. So I think we were hoping it'd get top 50, and it got to number 74, which I'm over the moon with, though. Like, I'm in the top 100.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, brilliant. I'll take that all day long. Fantastic, absolutely ace. And I got, again, on the back of that, all the artists who were involved in it, they all got a bit of additional airplay, and I got a bit of airplay myself. I got played on Radio X. I couldn't believe it. Again, it was like, and it were who were it now? Kennedy.
Oh, John Kennedy.
I can't remember his name.
John Kennedy.
Yeah, John Kennedy.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, John, if you're listening. Yeah, he said we were dead nice about it. And I'm like, I couldn't not believe it. Like, so happy. And it wouldn't have happened without being part of that Bits and Pieces. So it's got you get a few more followers out of it on social media. Got invited on a few things. A couple of like small festivals had been in touch, seeing if I fancied doing stuff, which I had to turn them down. But all these things come of that. It's like absolutely ace, and got so much kind of spotlight on all the bands that were involved. It were like really ace, and I was sad when it were over, to be honest, because I'd never been part of anything like that before, like a big kind of PR thing.
Yeah.
It were really ace. It was really good. Waking up and checking your tweets and having like all these notifications. I've never seen 20 notifications before. What's all that about? And you found out it's because, I'd been played on radio, or one of the other guys who'd been played on radio, Mark, had appeared on a podcast, and he was doing stuff, so we'd be all retweeting it. Really ace time. Really good.
Yeah, I was so happy to see when you were kind of selected to be on it, and that every act was doing like their revelations or their reveals that they were on it. It was lovely to see so many people so happy with it, and those Bits and Pieces compilations are fantastic, as are like the records, scissors and stuff that Stephen Brown puts out as well, which I nod my head to as well. So you said you got new followers out of that. There was a quote from the Chief Noel Gallagher, as I mentioned earlier, who heard your track "The Sheriff" back on the podcast, funny enough, by Matt Morgan, and grumpily commented, "It's alright." I mean, what can you recollect about when you first heard Noel Gallagher talk about you in that respect?
Yeah, well, it's weird when I'm like thinking, do I want to kick his head in, or or do I want, or am I, and then quickly I'm like going, this is ace. Like the fact that he's heard it, the fact that he's sat in his kitchen, right? That's where he was at the time, being played, 10 or 15 or 20 songs in that podcast, and I knew something was going on because Matt Morgan, are you aware of that stuff that he does?
Not really.
So he used to do. He was like Russell Brand's mate back in like early 2000s, right? And I don't think they're mates anymore, right? But he then set off doing his own like podcasts, and he would interview these people, whatever. But he's really friendly with Noel Gallagher, and has been for years and years. So Noel Gallagher comes on his podcast maybe once a month or something. It was about 2.5 hours. He'd done it for years and years, and I found out more about Oasis and Noel Gallagher from those podcasts than I have like in any documentary or whatever. It's really, really ace. And then one time he'd said, Matt had said, "Oh, we should get a load of subscribers and that to submit songs, and you can take the piss out of them or whatever." And he went, "Yeah, I'll do that." So then I just sent it in, and I think only about maybe 100 people sent their songs in.
Wow.
And then I noticed when I was checking on my Spotify like listens that Sheriff had about 30 listens in one day. I'm like, that's really weird for me. I mean, like, that didn't happen. It's not happened since it not happened before then either. So I thought there's something weird going on here, and it had been put on a podcast, put on a playlist on Spotify with all these other things. Why has that been on there? So weird. And then it kind of clicked. I thought, I wondered if somebody's compiling a list of all these songs to play to Noel. And then so the podcast came out, and I'm scrolling through it, skip, and then I heard my song.
Wow.
Oh God! I started my heart started beating like, what's it? Because I knew he'd they'd tear it apart or whatever. But yeah, they played it, and they got to like just before chorus or something, and they stopped it, and then Noel just went, "It's all right." I'm like, do you know what? For Noel Gallagher, that's like a 10 out of 10, isn't it?
That is high praise indeed. If Noel Gallagher just says it's all right, I'll take that all day long. Because if he'd have been any less than all right, then I'd have been torn to shreds, wouldn't I? So I'll take that. I'll take that all day long. That'll do for me. But yeah, what a nice thing to happen. Brilliant. Superb. So I guess I mentioned you at the top, like obviously you put out your own material, but I know you or first saw you on Twitter doing a video. I can't remember what first video I saw you in, but you do that pretty regularly, right? You take a song, sit down with your acoustic, and you cover it. I guess, how did that come about? Because it seems like you've been doing that for a fair while now, and all the videos that I've seen are amazing and seem to go down really well.
Oh, cheers, mate. Thank you. I've been doing it probably about 2.5 years, and I've probably averaged about 2 or 3 a week. So I'm rubbish at maths, but that's quite a lot.
Quite a lot.
Quite a lot. We'll stick with that. It is quite a lot, and I'm running out of ideas, if I'm being honest. So yeah, if you've got any, let me know. But and if anybody's listening to this has got any ideas or any things you want me to have a go at, get in touch on Twitter. It'll be very welcome. That came about because I tell you what happened when I was releasing these songs, like my own sort of singles. Like I said, I do 2 a year, so like I didn't have much of a following. I was just releasing it on social media. I couldn't go and gig it and promote it, so I was like building up to the release date. I'd release it, it'd get a little bit of airplay and exposure, very tiny bit, then it'd disappear. And all that 6 months of writing the song, recording it, getting the artwork, doing the things, making the tweaks, and the big day had come, you'd release it, hardly anyone would hear it because I've got no fans, and it'd all just kind of fizzle out quite quick. And then I'd do it again 6 months later, and I thought, I need something in the middle. I need to keep active in between these things. But not only that, I need to get more followers and more people coming through the social media stuff where all the links to my songs were. I only had like 100 Twitter followers or whatever. So like, even if I needed to get more traffic through the social media, I suppose. So I thought I'll just give that a go and start doing some covers and see what happens. And there was one kind of condition really, and it was I'll never do Wonderwall. I'll never do Don't Look Back in Anger. Basically what I mean is I'll never do anything obvious.
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I love Wonderwall, I love all that, but like, I'd never do anything obvious because I wanted it to be a bit different. So it'd be like Oasis B-sides, Shed 7, track number 7, track number 5, just album tracks that real kind of indie fans would know, but maybe pop fans wouldn't necessarily know. So like, I wanted people to say, I've never heard that covered before. No one's ever really had a go at that before. So it was like for people like me to hear, a Manson B-side or, a Doors album track that no one's ever done. So I managed to kind of keep that up for quite a long time. And then, started building this kind of following, even though like for the first, 3-4 months, no one were really hearing him and catching up on him because, it takes a while to build momentum, I suppose, with these. And then you get followers here and there, and then it would start building and building. And I remember the first single I released after I'd been doing the covers, I got the most plays, I got the most exposure, and I can only think it was through that like people had seen me. So when I were kind of touting it out on Twitter and on social media, people were like, "Oh, I know him. I'll give that a listen." So like kind of instantly it was having a really positive impact. But now I'm kind of addicted to it. Like I just love doing it. I'm not bothered if anybody hears it or not. I just love having a go at these songs and trying to get them right and get them sounding good. Like I say, I am running out of ideas, so I have had to go back to. Now again, I've done a couple of more popular Oasis album tracks, but still, I'm not got to Wonderwall just yet. But I just think with Wonderwall and all that kind of stuff, everybody's heard them before. You go into a pub and everybody's doing Wonderwall. Like I say, I wanted to do something a little bit more niche, and I'm still finding untapped sources sometimes. Like, hang on a minute, I've not forgot about that Ian Brown album. Let me have a look and see what I've got there. And there's a guy who you'll know, probably, Baba Youngblood.
Yes.
Does the Ace
amazing
artwork. I love that. Yeah, I love his stuff. I kind of always have. And like, he kind of got in touch years ago and saying, "Oh, I really like these covers. Tag me in," because I never used to tag anybody in. Really, I didn't want to bother anyone. And he was like, "If you do, tag me in." I'm like, "I want to bother you, mate." He's like, "Oh, no, I'll do it. I'll share it." And he's really supportive of like new music and other folks who are doing covers like Murdered Song of the Day guys, and like all those like that. He's just really supportive, and that without him, I could put a song out, a little whatever it would be, Ian Brown, bit of Stone Roses, whatever, and he's going all right. Then he reposts it, and the views go, and then the comments come in, and then I get an extra following in there. So I owe like loads to him as well. He's really, really supportive, really great guy. And if he's doing a bit of artwork these days, he might drop us a line and say, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing this, thinking about doing that. Do you fancy doing a cover to coincide with it?" Like just this past weekend gone, he'd done we were doing a giveaway for, I think it reached 10,000. So he got and he got loads of people involved doing covers of his artwork that he'd done. Ace, great fun, really ace fun, really good stuff to be involved. Yeah, so that's kind of where the covers thing kind of started from. It now I can't stop. I'm on a train that I can't get off.
Do you have a favourite video at all?
What, of my own?
Yeah, that you've done that you thought actually that was really good and I really enjoyed that.
That's a good question. I've never given it that much thought, to be honest. I did a version of Cloud Busting by Kate Bush. Right, that was one of them. I was just it came on radio, and I thought, I love this song, and I thought, I wonder if I could do it. And the next day, I recorded it, and I was really surprised how it worked, because I didn't think it would work with my voice or the way I was doing it. So you have to change things around a little bit sometimes to make it work for me or my voice or the way. Sometimes I don't just want to do a carbon copy. I want to do it a little bit different, and that worked. So yeah, I think that one I was quite proud of, just because it was so kind of like out of my comfort zone, for want of a better phrase. Something I wouldn't normally have chosen. That was quite good. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. Yeah, we'll go with that one. That's.
I think there's two videos that I've always enjoyed watching you. I think first was when I had John Powell on the podcast, and you said you don't do the obvious songs, and I think you've done Promised Land, and I was like, that's clever, because it's not Walk Away, it's not Sandstorm, it's not Fire Time. And then I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw you had a special guest on your video, and as you done Keen, and I thought, that is a lovely video. I thought that is superb.
Yeah, my little daughter, yeah. Well, she's a lunatic, right? So, but she's good fun, right? But she'd come in. I was working, and she'd come into the kitchen, and she was singing that song or that bit of it, and I didn't think anything of it. And then I'm thinking, how she heard that? It's like I don't have Keen on a lot in the house, you know. So I'm saying, where have you heard it? She'd been watching something on YouTube or something, and it was like an old Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent, or something that she'd watched. And this kid, that's it was the kid's version, and this kid had done it, and she'd watched it about like 100 times or something, and this bit she kind of knew. So I said to her, hang on a minute. So I stopped working and I got my acoustic and I started playing along. I said, can you sing and I'll play? And it worked. And within 10 minutes, I said, right, come on. I said, we'll do. And she says, we'll do a cover, because I call them kitchen covers in our house, so they know what I mean. Right. Everybody shut up, doing a kitchen cover, even if it's not in my kitchen. A lot of these. But so she was like, "Can I be on your covers?" Because we'd done one before last year, just a little snippet of a Lemon Twigs song that she loved, and we just did a little snippet of that. And it got like 19 likes, and she was just like over the moon that 19 people had seen it and liked it and all. Anyway, so I said, right, let's do it. And I knew it sounded good because she'd like got a decent little voice. She was holding these notes quite well. I said, let's do it. So set it up and we did it, and we did 3 takes of it. It was only a little snippet, wasn't it? Maybe a minute long. And we used the first one. And I just said, that's it, we've got it. So I posted it for a bit of fun, and she was like, oh, this is great. She was over the moon with it. And within 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it was just like comments, likes, and all this kind of thing. I'm like, how can I monetize this? It's a little lunatic. How can I turn it into gobble? Oh, so then I thought, right, this is cool. And it turned out to be one of the most popular ones that are done in terms of like interaction and exposure. Were great. So so I told her. So the next day I come back and I said, look at all these people. They're all like people just saying leaving lovely comments about her, not about me, unfortunately. But mainly about her. So I said, look, Dad, I'm the boss round here. You know, this is your little bit, but now it's back to me now. Normality resumes. Back to your bedroom, watching YouTube or what it is. Get out of my way. No, but it was cool, wasn't it? It was good. That she loved it, and she did. She loved. She was over the moon. It absolutely made her day.
Yeah, that was great. Great video. I highly recommend it. If no one's watched it, I'll definitely be reposting it on the podcast account when this pod comes out. So I met John Bon Jovi last week. Since then, all I've been listening to is Bon Jovi non-stop. It's like I'm 14 again. I'm loving life. Kenny.
How did you get to meet Bon Jovi? Is that through your work? HMV, are you?
HMV. I knew he was going to be there. I conveniently put a meeting in my calendar to be at the same point he was going to be at. I met him. He was as glorious as what I thought he would be, as what I hoped he would be. It was my first ever gig back in '93. I told him that. He looked into my eyes and said, "Thank you, brother," and he meant it.
Wow.
World made. So
that's ace.
That's
ace, mate.
Back into a Bon Jovi world. Kenny, what are you listening to at the moment? Whether it's new or old, what's on your hi-fi or on your Spotify or whatever you listen to?
Do you know what? I'm ashamed to say this. I don't know, but it's mainly old stuff. You know, it's not a lot of new stuff that I find. Not a lot of new guitar music. I've come to realise, but I'm kind of not interested in that anymore. That's not saying it's like because it's not any good. It definitely is. It's just not. I don't seem to be into the new guitar stuff that's coming up. I think it was Tommy Scott on when you had Tommy Scott on from Space. He said I'm a bit cynical these days. I don't like new music. It all sounds the same and all that. So I won't put myself with him and say I won't say I'm cynical about it. I just think that maybe that time has come where the stuff that I'm interested in now isn't necessarily guitar stuff. But I still like old guitar stuff. So I've been listening to sort of new Paul Weller album, giving that a go. That's taken a good few listens, I must say. I thought that hit me a bit quicker than it has, but I'm sticking with it. But then I've been listening to like Supergrass Doors, listening to a load of Doors albums again, electronic, few Smith stuff, all predictable stuff really. I do like, what do I like at the minute? I like a bit of Thundercat.
Oh, okay.
More, do you know what it is? It's more like songs these days than albums, and that's the way it seems to be going, doesn't it? You hear someone on Six Music, and right, that's on the playlist, and there it is. I like a bit of Thundercat. I like a bit of Bad Not Good. They're like a jazzy type thing, but good. I don't mean jazz. I don't mean that as a bad word. I mean like the good bit of it. That's quite good. Yeah, I like listening to the Lars recently as well. Again, it's all kind of famously predictable, really. But yeah, I am going to see Lemon Twigs. Have you heard much of them?
A little bit of them, yeah.
Lemon Twigs from sort of New Yorkish. They're a bit mad and a bit weird and dead 70s sounding. I've been giving them quite a few spins over the past couple of months. But yeah, it's kind of the old stuff. Doors, electronic. Yeah.
Classics.
Fairly boring, I'm afraid to say, but yeah, just the same old stuff.
Never boring, Kenny. Never boring at all. So this podcast is all about you collating your fantasy festival. But before we do that, are you a big fan of festivals? Have you been to many?
I've been to a few. I've been to Glastonbury a couple of times. Sort of, I think it was 99 and maybe 2000, a long time ago, when you could still sneak in and do it that way. And then did we go? I think I went to Leeds Festival one year again when you could sneak in. There's a pattern emerging here, isn't there? Yeah, when I have to start paying, I'm not going. No, I went to the last one we went to actually was Deershed. Now that's I can't remember where that is. It's like Ripon area, sort of up north anyway. And it's a definitely we'd call like a family festival, but like so it's clean, right? All toilets are nice. Yeah, bogs are nice and clean, decent food. It's, there's no idiots running about off their head smacking people. Like it's all dead safe. There's loads of kids knocking about, loads of little tents, but they get decent folk on as well. Like when we were there, it was Self-Esteem. She were headlining. I think last year they had Gaz Coombs. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So they have. I can't remember who else has done it, but it's all like they get good names there. It's kind of a real good balance of people you've not seen before. A couple of good names to kind of keep you going, like it's cool. So Deershed, my last one. But that's generally, I've always liked the ideas of festivals, but never been able to get to that many. But then times when I was at Glastonbury, for a long time, were the best time of my life. Do you know what I mean? 4 days at Glastonbury when it's sunny, like that stays with you for a long time. You know what I mean? Like so ace. Yeah, love it.
All right. So, like I said, at the top of the episode, the Fantastival Podcast is getting our guests to collate their fantasy festival. So Kenny gets to choose any 5 acts, one of whom must play one of their studio albums in full and an encore, which could be any song that all 5 of Kenny's acts will perform together to close his fantasy festival. So that's very simple for any first-time listeners. 5 acts, 5 time slots. So in the last episode, I had Charlie Stone on. She collated her A Cure for Time festival. In her opening act, she picked Lucinda Williams, who made her first appearance in our Fantastival lineup. Super second, she picked Throwing Muses. So again, a new act for the Fantasy Festival. Midway Madness, she went for Pixies. Pre-headline act, she picked All About Eve, so another new act on the Fantastival roster. And for a headliner, she had a secret headliner who she wasn't going to announce until he made his appearance at the Fantasy Festival. And it turned out to be Prince and the Revolution. And she had them playing Purple Rain in full. And for her encore, she done a little cheat. She had 2 songs going into one. So she had Tobacco Road, which then went into Who Knows Where the Time Goes. So very simple for any first-time listeners. So Kenny, before we go through your lineup, we need to give your fantasy festival a name. And we need to give it a venue. So Kenny, what are you going to call your fantasy festival?
Well, I've given this some thought, my friend, and it's changed 5 or 6 times in the past 2 hours. But I'm going to stick with the sort of Brazilian type thing and getting my name in there a little bit. Festival de Santos.
Oh, I love it.
which I think will probably translate as Festival of the Saints.
Brilliant. All right,
which is which I didn't realise that at the time, but Festival de Santos.
I love it. So we can go. We can go anywhere, Kenny. We can stick with Leeds. We can go to Brazil. We can go somewhere more glamorous. Leeds or Brazil. I wonder where we're going. We can go anywhere you want to take us, mate. We will follow. Big, small, all over the world. So, Kenny, where do you want to hold Festival de los Santos?
Well, I think I might have Braziled everyone out by now. So we're going to go to New York.
Oh wow! Right? Okay.
I went to New York with my mate Johnny Clark, who was in the original sort of Brazil. He was the drummer in that original lineup, and we went to New York. I'd say about 10 years ago now, depressingly enough, and it was insane. We had the best time ever, like from start to finish, was just crazy. But and then kind of ruined my life for about 6 months afterwards because it was just too good. It was too good. So I thought, you know what? If I need an excuse to go back there, so I'm going to go back to watch. I'm going to go to Festival de Santos, and it's going to be in Central Park.
Oh, I love it. What a venue. All right, so we've got our name, we've got our venue. Before we talk about the 5, any acts, Kenny, who you love, want to give a shout out to, who are one of your favourites but just aren't making it into Festival de Santos?
Yeah, loads. There is loads, but I think the ones that definitely made the shortlist were like The Doors, Supergrass, Manson, Fleet Foxes, The Lars, Beach Boys, The Who. I mean, list is kind of endless, really, but like those are the ones that I were really struggling with. And I'll be honest, I've not made my decision on one yet. So there's still 2 still battling for it. And I said I'll make my decision on the day. So So as we move on, there's 2 bands still fighting for a slot. All right. Still to be decided.
All right. I like it. We're flying by the seat of our pants in this one. All right, it's 2:00. Festival de Santos, sold out. Central Park is lovely. We've got people sneaking in, doing the old Kenny sneak into the festival. Kenny's sneaking in himself to this one because he couldn't get a ticket because it sold out so quickly. 2:00, Kenny. Time for your opening act. Who's going to open Festival de Santos?
Well, I thought I'd start nice and easy. We're nice and relaxed and steady way. People opening the first beer or taking their first illegal substance of choice. A band called Snow Goose. There was a guy, can you remember a band called BMX Bandits and Soup Dragons and all that type of thing? Well, this guy, Jim McCullough, he was in both Soup Dragons and BMX Bandits. And there's him and a lady called Anna Sheard. And I mean this in the best possible way. I don't normally like this type of music. It's kind of folky. It's kind of, do you know Fleet Foxes? Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, they're like our Fleet Foxes, I think. Or Fleet Foxes are their Snow Goose, right? Whatever came first. Because they're really, really chill. It's like folk, again, something I wouldn't normally go for, but it's different. It's a bit like, psychedelic's too strong. I'm not saying it's like trippy or anything, but there's just something about it that's really good. The songs are ace. Her voice is ace. The melodies are great. The albums are smart. I first heard the first song on, I think it was Mark Cliff's show on Six Music years ago. And I couldn't find the CD. I loved that song. I found the song. I had to write to them to buy a CD. I had to send them a check. I think it was 2012, right? I had to send them a check to this PO address. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then about 7 months later, it arrived. I'm like, you're not that bothered, are you? Give me the music. So anyway, and we listened to it. We had it in car for months, and everybody loved it. And then they brought another out, the second album out, I think it was last year, maybe 22, equally as good, brilliant. So I thought, right. And I've done a cover of their song, one of their songs, and called Everything. It's the opening track of the Making of You album, the second one. And I copied them in, nothing. Got nothing back, mate. I thought they might come back and say, this is a nice little cover. Somebody's doing a little cover. Nah, I didn't think they watched it. I don't think they're that keen on the social medias. But, I always like to say I like to do unusual stuff and that was it. But, it was a great couple of albums. So, perfect 2:00 festival opener. Snow Goose.
Great shout. All right, Snow Goose making their first appearance on the Fantastival podcast. So new act, they're going to play from 2 till 3 in Central Park. We're going to take a half-hour break, and then at 3:30, it's time for your Super Seconds act, Kenny. So who are you going to have follow Snow Goose in your Super Seconds?
So this is the one where I'm still undecided, so I've got to make a decision quick. One of my favourite bands of all time are Long Pigs. Right, seen them loads of times, 90s, early 2000s. Just love them. Love Crispin Hump. Richard Hawley, of course, he's doing well in his solo stuff now. But loved them. Mean a lot to me and my mates, the Long Pigs, and so to not have them involved seems a bit odd. But the other act is Nerd, N-E-R-D. Pharrell's.
Yeah.
Thing, right. Their first 3 albums, absolutely outstanding. Right. Certainly that first album for me, what I will have been about 22, 23, 24. It was on all the time, and it's like the soundtrack to that particular summer. It's just ace. Pharrell, I know people know him for Happy and the more poppy stuff, but take a listen to that NERD stuff, and he writes loads of songs for other people, and it's weird, you'll listen to a song and you go, I really like that song, I really like that bit of that song, and then you realise Pharrell's wrote it, and you go, I really like that bit, and you realise, that bit was by Pharrell. So it would have, I think Nerd would be like a good party thing. Long Pigs. I think Long Pigs might swing it, right? Because, and I take this very seriously, as you can see, like that Long Pigs might fit in more with the festival itself. Nerd might be a bit odd.
Saying that though, Kenny,
people jumping and dancing around.
Nerd did do. I remember Nerd on the festival circuit brought a band over and were pretty good on the festival circuit. I remember that when that second album came out, and that first album, like you said, it's a banger. That first album's got some huge tunes on Rockstar and a few others that I remember loving. That's it, yeah.
That's right. Well, that band were called Spy Mob, who were a band in their own.
That's right, yeah.
And like incredible musicians, ace drummer. And that first album they did with it was like programmed drums and programmed instruments. And then they re-released it with that band second time around. And yeah, it's ace. They're amazing live. So yeah. So yes, it is. Yeah, I am torn. I think to sticking with the vibe of the festival, Steve, I'm going to go with Long Pigs.
Kenny, I like you, mate. I'm willing to cut you a deal. Right? I'm willing to offer you Long Pigs and just because you're a nice guy. And that you can have them as joint super seconds. I think we do that.
You've made my day.
You've sold Nerd to me again. As soon as we finish this, mate, I'm going to put it on that first Nerd album. I've got all my CDs alphabetical, and I can see it's literally right there waiting to go on when we finish this.
Got it, mate.
All right. Long Pigs and joint super seconds. We're making history in New York as we speak. Going to be a fantastic super seconds act. They're going to play for an hour, 3:30 to 4:30. Take a half-hour break, and it'll be Midway Madness time from 5 till 6. So, Kenny, got an amazing opening act and a super seconds act. Who are you going to have for Midway Madness?
We're going to go for Tears for Fears.
Oh, great shout.
Yeah. Now, again, another little secret here I'll let you into. I hated Tears for Fears up until about 10 years ago. In fact, I hated everything in the 80s, right? Growing up in, like, my sort of proper era for music growing up was when I was like 15, 16, 17. When I was like, had my own money, so I could had my own opinions and all that. But looking back in 94, 5 and 6 at the 80s, I thought, how did it even exist? Like, who liked that type of music? To me, it felt soulless, programmed and awful and everything. And then I now start to appreciate stuff. I love stuff like Style Council now. And even though I do struggle with that 80s production element of it, that's just how it was. But the songs are still ace. I now love 80s Tears for Fears. Still a lot of 80s stuff I don't like, Visage and stuff like that. But just not my cup of tea. But yes, I'm really surprised to say that Tears made it. 10 years ago, if I'd have said that, I'd have laughed myself out of the room. But Tears for Fears, they're just ace, aren't they? Like, I think Noel Gallagher called them the Beatles of the 80s. And I think, that's probably quite right. They had an ace album out in about 2004 called Everybody Loves a Happy Ending, I think that's what it's called. Every song on it is absolutely ace. And they had a new album out recently, Tipping Point, that were ace. You go back to sort of the 90s stuff, even back to late 80s stuff with Sowing the Seeds of Love and all that. Yeah. Like, I reckon they could fill a good hour and a half with like bangers, couldn't they? And everybody would be happy. No one would be more happier than me, that's for sure. Yeah, I love them. Don't know where it came from, that, but yeah, that's where they are. They're going in.
Great shout. Unbelievably, first time they've been picked for a fantasy festival. I thought they'd been picked before. I can't believe it. First time, Kenny. So all for your acts are making their first appearance. Yeah, Tears for Fears, great band. Again, same with you. I didn't really care for Tears for Fears until I joined the HV head office. And then at 5 o'clock every Friday without fail, my mate Dave would put on Head Over Heels every Friday, and I thought, this is an absolute banger. And then from there you get into songs for the big chair, and then you're gone your way, you're converted.
He's ace at it, absolutely ace. I did try and do a cover of Head Over Heels. His voice is incredible though. Yes. I've got no chance. No chance.
You never know.
Because he goes from low to high and high to low, and it's like I can't reach those. So maybe I'll get my little daughter to do it.
Not a bad shout, that. Not a bad shout.
Yeah, not a bad shout, is it? Yeah.
All right, Midway Madness, Tears for Fears, 5 till 6. Gonna put on a great set. So 3 acts down, and we've got 2 acts left. So next up, Kenny, your pre-headline act. We're going to play from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So Kenny, who's going to be your pre-headline act?
So this is who I want to do their album in full, from start to finish. And I want it to be Radiohead doing OK Computer.
Okay.
Now, I mean, to me, that's their best album. To other people. I remember when that came out and it being one of the weirdest things I'd ever heard. Like when I first heard Paranoid Android, I'm like going, what is this? And now when you listen to it, it's quite normal, it's almost got pop elements to it. And I just remember being really weirded out by it and not a big fan of it at the time. And my mate, Andy Zuck, like I say, who does a lot of the producing of the stuff, is an absolute Radiohead fanatic. And I always like taking the mick out of him a little bit with Radiohead, especially with the later stuff. Like, I can't remember the name of the last album, but it was just so kind of like odd. And I mean in a good way.
Yeah.
I found it really kind of inaccessible. And he were all over it. He was like clicking his fingers. I'm like, how are you dancing to this? There's no, but he loved it, So, but the thing that kind of swung it for me is going back to Glastonbury again when Radiohead in '97 did the headline.
Yeah, the headline.
If they didn't do it, it was really quite late on, wasn't it? And they did that set, which was ace. And I think they did 7 or 8 songs from OK Computer in that set. Paranoid Android, Karma Police, Lucky. They do Climbing Up the Walls, I remember. But I just remember watching that and being blown away by it, and that turned me into, maybe not a Radiohead fan, but an OK Computer. I loved it, and I've watched it lots of times over the years. On YouTube after a few beers and put your headphones on. You think, "Oh, I'll just watch him do Karma Police," and then it goes on to Letdown or whatever it is, not Letdown, whatever. And then before you know it, you're on the next one. Then you've watched the whole thing, and you think absolutely ace. For me, that's them. I know Radiohead fans will think that. For me, and certainly for this festival, having them do OK Computer. If we can have a word with whoever's in charge of the weather to maybe get it a bit cloudy, keep it dry, get it cloudy and a bit dark, and get them to do OK Computer from start to finish. Yeah, that'd be ace, wouldn't it?
All right, that's on the fantasy weather element is all tied into this, so it's going to be cloudy skies ahead but not raining. Radiohead are going to come on, smash out OK Computer. It's going to be glorious. 8th time they've been chosen Radiohead, so another appearance for Radiohead. So they are your pre-headline act. They go off stage. One more break and it's 8:30 and it'll be time for your Fantasy Festival headliners. So Kenny, I'm not sure who you're going to pick for this one actually. I always get excited for the headliner, and I can't quite tell where you're going with this one. So Kenny, 8:30, who's going to headline Festival de los Santos?
So I'm assuming I've pictured the headline. They're going to be on for a long time, right? So who could I listen to for a long time? That's what I kind of came to. But the answer was quite easy in the end. Oh, well, he could fill 2.5 hours easy. In fact, I think I've seen him do it. I've seen him a few times recently, and I've seen him a couple of times over the years, and he's always been ace. And he had that certain golden period of Wildwood, Stanley Road, Heavy Soul, and then 3 amazing albums. And again, that comes back to that thing, around that time, to me, it just brings back ace memories, because you had like Oasis bringing out ace albums, Charlatans bringing out ace albums, Weller bringing out ace albums. Like everywhere you look, there's just this wealth of everybody in there, like golden period. And for me, those 3 Weller albums are incredible. And he followed it up with Heliocentric, which were another ace album as well. So like he's got just there and there alone, he's got enough. And he's brought out another 10 albums, hasn't he, since then, if not more. So he could fill that with absolute bangers for sure. It'd be ace that.
All right, great stuff. Very apt. Like you say, he's just released an album, turned 66, but only the 3rd time he's been picked. So that doesn't get picked as much as what you think, Mr. Weller. So the Modfather's going to play from 8:30 to 11. He's going to headline and close your Fantasy Festival. Then at 11 o'clock, he's bringing back on stage Radiohead, Tears for Fears, Long Pigs, Nerd, and Snow Goose. Brazil might even sneak out on the stage. Who knows what's going to happen at 11 o'clock?
If they can pay us enough.
Or maybe you get 50 tickets and you need to sell them all and then take £1 back for it. So you get $50 in your pocket.
That's right, yeah. Really old times, yeah.
And they're all looking at you, Kenny, going, right, what are we going to play to close this bad boy? So what are you going to have all your acts play together to close your Fantasy Festival?
Okay, it's going to be Instant Karma by John Lennon. That'd be ace. 6 drummers on stage, all banging away at the same time. Weller's done a version of that before. He recorded, I think it was just a live thing. Was it a charity? I can't remember. But he had Steve White, who was his drummer at the time, and then Alan White from Oasis. They were both drumming on it, and it sounded ace. And I think, having all those people doing that, it's a song I think that can absorb a lot of people doing stuff at the same time. 10 guitars, loads of drums, loads of people singing. I think that'll work, Ace. I'd love to hear it. So if you can organise that, Steve, that'd be great. Instant Karma, please.
That'd be awesome. What your fantasy festival, Kenny? So your act's playing your song. It's gonna be done. All right, let's lock this fantasy festival into the Fantastival Vault. So we've got Festival de los Santos taking place at Central Park in New York. Opening act, we've got Snow Goose. Super seconds, we've got a double set from Long Pigs and NERD Nerd. Midway Madness, we've got Tears for Fears. Pre-headline act, we've got Radiohead, OK Computer. Headlining is Paul Weller. And for your encore, all your acts are going to play Instant Karma. Kenny, I'd get on a plane right now to New York to go and see that lineup. Sounds great to me. You happy to lock that one in?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, it does sound good. You're right. Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Mate, sounds ace. I'm delighted with that Fantasy Festival lineup. So before we finished what the next few months look like for you, Kenny? What you got planned? You got single releases coming? You got more videos coming? What are the plans for you?
Yeah, so I'll continue to do. I'll continue to keep banging out the bits until people get sick of us. So continue to knock out covers and that. Feel free anybody to get in touch if you've got any suggestions. Very welcome. I probably will go down and record. I've started working on a new song recently, and I'm hopefully we'll get down and record that with my old mate Zuck. July, August time, fingers crossed. I've just been doing a bit of a collab with him. A couple of months ago we went down and did a bit of collab and wrote it together, and I've been down and recorded kind of my bits and leaving him to do his bits, so that'll be quite interesting. And we'll put that out, whether SoundCloud or Spotify, just a bit of fun, whatever. But that'll be good to get out because that was quite interesting to do. What I'm thinking about next is, and it's just a bit of a pipe dream at the minute, but I've got 10, 11 songs kind of separately on recorded and out on Spotify and streaming and stuff. And it was my cousin that gave me the idea. He's like, I wonder if you could choose the best ones of those, kind of get it on vinyl, do a short run of vinyl, maybe 100, whatever, and sell them, and that'd be a good little bit of getting that collection that's online and making it physical. And I do not know where to start. Right, I do not know where to start. So many. You can't do limited runs of vinyl for certain reasons because it's complicated and the process is too long. You could do limited runs of these what they call it, lathes, something or other, that are not very good quality and sometimes don't work on certain record players, and it's all very expensive and all that kind of thing. So I'm still working my way through that to see whether it can be done. It's really expensive. Somebody suggested do a Kickstarter or whatever version of that would be more appropriate, where I'm not interested in making any profit, or even if I lose a bit of money, but see how many people would be interested, because I don't think if you could get a few people in, showing interest and saying, if it comes out, if you do it, I'll buy one, and maybe we could look at how many people sign up for that, and if we get enough signed up, maybe that would mean that I can afford to do the run, and then everybody gets the vinyl if they want it. So that's still very much a pipe dream, still very much looking into it, but I kind of don't know where to start. So if anybody's out there listening does know where to start, or can point me in the direction of a company or a way to do it, or if I'm just talking out my backside, because it's a ridiculous idea, and that's fine. But if anybody wants to get in touch via Twitter, Santos Connection, then I'd really appreciate that. But other than that, Steve, I'm all that's it. I'm very happy, just rolling along, no dramas, big smile on my face, dead happy. Really happy to have done this, by the way, Steve. Really, really appreciate your support, sort of in past as well. But inviting me on here, mate, you made my day. Absolutely made my day. Like, I've listened to loads of episodes and know your voice really well.
Oh.
And I wasn't not nervous at all, but just couldn't believe it. Like, couldn't wait to get going. You know what I mean? I really enjoyed having my mind filled with what we're going to choose. It's a really ace bit of fun in it, and I'm really over the moon to be asked, Steve. And I really appreciate all your support, and thanks for having me on here. Absolutely made my week, mate. Thank you.
Oh, Kenny, been an absolute pleasure. Before I let you go, you've mentioned your Twitter handle, which is the Santos Connection. If you want to shout out your Spotify or any other social media handles, the floor is yours. So where can people go? What websites can people go to find out about you and keep in touch with your latest going-ons? Yeah,
so the main thing's Twitter. That's where everything is. All the links are on there to everything. The covers are on there. Like I said, I do a couple every week. Indie classics, hidden gems, all that type of stuff. B-sides, things you might never heard of. You can go on there. Like I said, I've still not worked out the maths, Steve, but I must have loads, hundreds anyway. Let's just say hundreds and hundreds. And you can search the Twitter and see, type in, I don't know, your favourite band is Manson, Oasis, whatever, and it brings them all up, the ones I've done. I've done a few Tears for Fears. I think I've done everybody really on my wish list there. So go on there and have a scan through on that. And Spotify, if you just type in the Santos Connection, it should bring up like the playlist of everything that I've done on there. Yeah. And I've just heard about this. This is a bit of an exclusive, Steve. The Telf,
yeah,
guy, you've had him on, haven't you?
Yeah, Steve.
The Murdered Song of the Day guy. So just as I was coming on here, I just accidentally clicked on Twitter, and I was meant to click on Spotify, clicked on Twitter, and I had a lot of notifications like that. This is weird. When I get a load of notifications, I'm like, what's going on here? I clicked on it, and the Telf's done a cover of Emperor, the song that were on bits and pieces.
Right.
He's done it, so I've not had a chance to listen to it. But again, like, what an honour that is. Like, smiling from ear to ear. Yeah, it's ace. People moan about Twitter a lot, and there is a lot of crap on there. And I'm like, and people leave, don't they, because it just gets too much. I'm like, don't leave, because then, they've won. Like, get rid of the negative stuff, because there's a load of positive stuff on there. Hang on to that. And if you hang on to that, Twitter's a great place. And that Murder Song of the Day crowd and people and like Bobby Youngblood and everybody's involved in that, and loads of other people, they make it a really positive place. And, I've just had an ace example of it today with Steve doing a cover of that song of mine. Never in a million years did I think anybody would be anywhere near interested in doing anything like that. But here we are. It's done. And again, that's got to be down to me doing them covers and slowly, getting my face out there and stuff. If it weren't for those covers, I still think are a massive bit of fun. People tell me they're getting enjoyment out of it. I get massive enjoyment out of it. I'm making loads of new mates because of it. And everybody's really positive and really happy. And yeah, I'll take that all day long, mate. All day long. Yeah.
Superb. That is a perfect way to end this lovely podcast. So thanks to everyone for listening to the 167th episode of the Fantastival Podcast. And if you've enjoyed this one, please subscribe. You can subscribe on iTunes and you can give the podcast a review on there. Or if you're listening on Spotify, you can follow the pod, which is really important actually. So please do that if you don't do that already. You can also rate the show on Spotify, and you can comment on said episodes on Spotify as well. So that'd be great if you can do so. Kenny said the Santos Connection on Twitter, so is the pod. So if you don't follow us, give us a follow at Fantastival P. You can also find the podcast on TikTok that I do once a week, every Sunday, where I go out on my little walk and do a little post about the podcast. And if you're not on TikTok or Twitter, you can email the pod with your thoughts at fantastivalpodcast@outlook.com. Unfortunately, we don't play music on this podcast, but I'll get some tracks from Kenny of his chosen acts. We'll make a nice little Spotify playlist. So scroll down in the episode description. There'll be a nice little link there, and go and click on that to hear some tracks from Kenny's choices. So Kenny, I normally ask my acts how they feel like the podcast has gone, but you wrapped up so well before when you were talking about it. So mate, like I said, I wanted you on the podcast for a while. I'm delighted that you chose to do it. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I've had a big smile on my face when we've been doing it. All the best of luck for the future, and hopefully that vinyl gets produced. You find a way of doing that. I'll be one of the first people to pre-order that, and can't wait to have that in my hand to go and tweet about it. So hopefully that comes off. But all the best for the future, mate. And that is me done for this one. So I'll be back next week with episode 168. So please make sure to join me for that one. But until then, stay safe, my Fantastival friends. Please continue to spread the word, and that word is Fantastival. Thanks for listening.